So I've been doing this thing where, so I have to, a little while back, I got to the point where I have to start walking every day, which seems cool, except I had to acquire a cane. Okay, we are live. I had to acquire a cane to walk with. So I'm like just hobbling down the dumb street. There's a link, YouTube. You know what I mean? Hobbling down the street with my white man hair, with my man white hair, with my white hair. I'm a white man, but I have the white hair. I've got the full Santa. So I'm rolling down the street in full Santa mode is what I'm trying to say, with my fishing cap on. I don't even fish. And my cane just it's just pitiful is the bottom line. It's just pitiful. Moving just about that fast as you'd imagine. It's really pitiful. That's been my world for a little while here is pitifulness. Ooh, that's very nice, Chad. I need that cane. I have a wooden one that's kind of cool, but I could use a better one. And hopefully there's a point in my not too distant future when I won't need one. That would be all right. I can handle it. Okay. Me with my white man hair. Okay. So, no, was there anything cool? Was there anything cool spring breaky for anybody? I hope somebody had a cool something. More quarantine. Okay, one true story, and then I want to dive in. We're going to talk about the cuckoo's egg. I hope that we're all okay with this because I believe that a week and a half ago, before spring break, well, 12 days ago, that I said when we come back from spring break, everyone should have a chance to finish Cuckoo's egg, and we got to talk about it. And Cuckoo's egg. So that's today. All right. I mean, unless there's like some strong, really, it's mid-March. Everybody should have read The Cuckoo's Egg by now. If you didn't, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, but you know what I'm saying. You still have to. I'm just saying we can still have a conversation. I hope most of you read, have finished reading The Cuckoo's Egg. So let me see. And I got no one belly aching on that, so I'm just going. We're going Cuckoo's Egg, okay? The first thing I want to show you is my own memento from my copy of The Cuckoo's Egg. Check it out. Can you guys read that? That says, for Chuck Knudsen, um, here's hoping that you don't go through this nuttiness. Smiles, Clifford Stahl. I did not write this. You might ask, who did? Clifford Stahl. Yeah, I did. I met him. And I don't know, he came to Oregon State for some reason, was given a talk or something, and he did a little, you know, meet and greet, whatever, and had his books. He had The Cuckoo's Egg, and then he tried to kind of capitalize on it. Where's my actual copy? It might not be on my desk. It might be like back in my library. Yeah, I don't think it's like right here. But no, so he was just there, and Cliff is he's a very, very interesting guy, and um, there was this table with the books and stuff, and he was actually sitting on the table. And I had already read the book, and I had my paperback copy. So I took my paperback copy with me to, you know, get a signature, to get him to autograph it. So he had another book that he did afterwards that was called Silicon Snake Oil. It was a bit of a, I don't know, an expose on the whatever. I don't know what it was about. I read it, but it was like, you know what I mean? Kind of a negative, technology will kill us all kind of thing, which in light of the social dilemma, maybe is like partially true. I don't know. I had to look back. It might have actually aged better than it seemed at the time. Possibility. But anyway, really a sweet guy, really a nice guy. He also did a TED talk, and if you're intrigued, okay. So let me throw down. So I got some notes about this, and yeah, I'm going old school here because it's just easier. Someone's got a hot mic. Alfredo, you got a hot mic.
Sorry.
Alfredo.
Yeah,
Hey,
sorry.
all right, man. It's all good. Uh, especially if you mute right after that. Alfredo, still hot mic. There we go. All right, thanks. All right, I'm just curious. Okay, you've read the book. What are the themes? I want drop them in the comments or jump on the voice. What are the themes that you see coming out of this book?
Be serious, Cliff.
What's that?
Be serious, Cliff.
Be serious, Cliff. What does that mean, Ammon?
Just often during the book, I constantly saw people telling Cliff, "Be serious. What really happened?" or something like that,
Okay,
or
like
just
having
like
having a hard time being taken seriously about what what really happened.
just like constantly. Well, like things would happen to him, and he'd tell what's going on. People would be like, "Be serious. That's not what happens," or like him being like, "You're the feds. You wear trench coats, right?" And they're like, "Be serious. We don't actually do that. That's
Okay,
only in the movies,"
right. So
or just things like that.
yeah. And what I like about that is actually, to me, I'm putting that into a category that I call Cliff's coming of age. What I mean by that is there's an evolution that Cliff goes through, right? Like, wait, aren't you guys supposed to wear trench coats? And there's like these like biases and misconceptions about, or at least inaccurate conceptions. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, Gabe, yeah, he's kind of a hippie who gets self-acknowledged, kind of Berkeley hippie who gets pulled into government drama. And yeah, and I think all this kind of relates. I'm going to come back to Gabe's privacy versus convenience, which is absolutely a thing. Um, just making a quick note here about something. But no, this notion of the evolution. So some of the comments are, um, sometimes the good thing to do doesn't necessarily align with your personal belief. That's interesting, right? Um, and then Chad mentioned, if I don't do it, who else will? Which I really like that. That's kind of I don't know, what do we call that? Kind of personal accountability. You know what I mean? That the whole like, well, whose job is this really? If it's not me, who? Um, so let me see. But that whole notion of um, what I'm calling coming of age for Cliff, right? His sort of emergence, I kind of view it as Cliff starts the whole adventure with a sort of black and white view of the world, you know? And then it kind of evolves. And his what was his what was his girlfriend's name? I'm blanking. Martha. Um, I've read the book a couple times, but I haven't read it, in a decade, as a sort of a cover to cover thing. Um, Martha. Here's some examples. Let's talk about that for a second, and then we've got the whole privacy versus convenience, personal accountability. Um, uh, Jordan said trust goes both ways. Was that a quote? Is that generous? Was that a quote from outside of this context, or is that a quote that I don't remember from inside the book? Jordan.
That was one of the themes,
Okay.
and I used a Star Wars quote to capture it.
Is Jyn Erso a Star Wars character that I've somehow allowed to lapse back into my memory?
She's from Rogue One.
She's from Rogue One. Okay. Yeah, right. See? That universe, right? It's lost me, obviously, right? Give me some throwback. But okay, thank you. Yeah, Robbie said another thing. Sometimes best ideas come from the least expected people. True, right? Okay, I want to talk about the coming of age, and let me throw a couple at you and just see what you think. We got this exchange. This was in my this is in my paperback. It was on page 71, but Martha said, "Do you want to spend your time being a cop?" Cliff goes, "A cop? No, I'm an astronomer. But here's someone threatening to destroy our work." "We don't know that," Martha retorted. "Maybe this hacker is closer to us politically than those security people. What if you're chasing someone on your own side?" Any thoughts about that? And I think that this relates to this question that I threw out at you. I think I threw out at you earlier in the semester, which is, if I show you a scenario, and the scenario is sort of behavioral. Like, for example, I think the example I gave was, someone makes some innocent, really truly innocent bystander happens to just turn their car down a street, down the wrong street on the wrong day at the wrong time while there is a riot going on in the street. And then the next thing you know, this individual is being dragged from the car and being beaten to death or close to it, good or bad. And you don't know who the players are, and you don't know the politics of anyone involved. You don't know anything but what I just told you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And this idea of kind of a moral relativism when it comes to ethics, like, is it okay, lying is bad unless it serves your purpose or is for the right cause, or violence is it always bad? um, Black and white thinking versus kind of gray zone thinking. It's my assertion that the bulk of our lives play out in the gray zones and not in black and white land. And that we retreat to black and white land for sort of security, maybe a little intellectual laziness, I think sometimes, you know. Plus, it's way easier to, if I can dehumanize you by making us not just disagree, but making you the enemy of all that's good and a destroyer of all that's good, as opposed to a good person like me who has a different view about this one thing. Again, that's politically agnostic. I don't care. Place yourself, where maybe you naturally fall out, then flip it and place yourself in that other position. It should, in my view, proper ethical behavior, should tend to be symmetrical. You know what I mean? Is it okay, and under what conditions, to punch somebody in the face? Or to scream in somebody's face, which became very much in vogue last summer. You know what I mean? So, any thoughts? That's kind of my little sort of seed, and then and I'll try to read and catch up. But if you have any, also just, verbal comments, please drop in. And then I'm just trying to catch up on the comments. What are your thoughts? Put another way, is hacking into a system and potentially destroying things okay? Well, first of all, let's go to the gray zones. Are there any situations in which that would be okay? I would argue yes. But we get real nervous in the gray zones. So we retreat back to a black and white, like, yes, but only if they're on my side, or no, not ever. And I think that neither of those is a particularly enlightened position, in my view. I think you have to be willing to articulate the value system that says why, if it is asymmetrical, why it's asymmetrical, and what are the principles, what are the limiting principles that govern that asymmetry, right? Okay, thoughts. Alex said, it's okay when my team does it is one of the biggest problems with modern politics. Yup. That right there. That right there. Holy crap. It's actually so absurdly shameless. And by the way, and I'm going to just say this again, if you're a Democrat and you think that this only applies to Republicans, you're part of the problem. If you're a Republican and you think that only applies to Democrats, you're part of the problem. Since I'm an independent, I get to be self-righteous. No, but you know what I mean? I know people on both sides who literally think that only fill in the blank party has ever been inconsistent. And that's an absurd position. And I have it from both sides. I have friends that are either Democrats or they're left-leaning independents who believe that only Republicans have ever acted inconsistently and hypocritically. I give you Exhibit A, Merrick Garland. And I have friends who are either Republicans or conservative-leaning independents who believe emphatically that only Democrats have ever acted inconsistently. Let's see. Let me see. Coder said, no matter what the politics, no matter or what they're protesting, I think it's just a terrible thing to do. And this is, I think, back to my comment about, right, rando car just gets pulled over, bodies dragged out, beat the crap out of them. I think that's unless we place it into a context that is very specifically adversarial, like you are, French resistance during World War II, and the people being dragged out of a car are German soldiers, or you know what I mean, something where there are in fact very clear battle lines in an actual existential threat, you know, because I think one of the problems when the what's the word I'm looking for, when the rhetoric amps up, and when you start to view somebody's rhetoric, when you view somebody's speech as violence, there's no limiting principle then for what you could ever do, right? If somebody's violent toward me, I have a right to defend myself, possibly with deadly force. If I believe someone's trying to take my life, right, and I'm in that moment of threat, I have legal and I think ethical opportunity to defend myself, which I would be very pitiful at right now, other than the cane I'm armed with. But you know what I mean? But if speech is violence and you conflate that completely and there's no differentiation, then if somebody says something to me, apparently I can kill them because they're being violent to me and they're representing an existential threat to me. And then I have the right to physical violence as an act of self-defense. I think that's I think it's a personally, and again, I can be wrong about, right? We had this conversation. I can be wrong, but I personally believe that that's a horrible and morally and ethically indefensible position, and it starts with conflating speech and violence. And when we can't draw clean enough lines, when we can't draw fine enough distinctions, when everything lumps together into big broad categories of black and white, I think there's a lot of problems. And so part of what I'm trying to do in this class is we talk about ethics, we talk about technology, we talk about, society, is to both model and practice finessing the conversation. Because if I think that your words in which you simply express disagreement with me, if I believe they're violence, I might have the right to kill you. And that is an ungodly, brutal, and destructive philosophy, in my opinion. And if you take the limit of that function as N approaches stupid, what happens? I think it ends really badly for society. And again, back to symmetry. And I'm going to go back to comments. Back to symmetry, right? If your words are violence to me and therefore I have the right to scream in your face and or punch you, take you out, beat you to within an inch of your life, you do understand, right, that ethically the other person has the same right as a party to that interaction. I go with that. You go with that. You know what I mean? If you pull somebody out of a car and they come out shooting at you, was there one crime committed or two? Or none? You know what I mean? You see what I'm trying to say? Let me come back. This is the part where the comments start to rock and roll, which I love. I hope you love it too. So Chad said I get really uncomfortable when I get dragged into a tense situation because I don't know who's right. That's totally fair, right? That's totally fair. My old man recommendation: back up, get some breathing room, step out, go think it through. You know. Okay, so Alex mentioned reminds you of the worm, right? That caused the Iranian nuclear reactors to malfunction, right? Which was documented, Stuxnet, documented in the book Countdown to Zero Day. You know, given the threat, and I'm going to make a bold statement, and this is just my opinion, given the threat of a nuclear weapon equipped Iran, you know, I think that was a good play. Now, I haven't read the book and I'm not as educated as I'd like to be. So I can also change my view on that if, you know, if I understand. And if you disagree with me, then I'd just love to have the conversation, right? To understand and, you know what I mean? To help me understand where you're coming from in that whole thing. But yeah, Alex, thanks for the link on that as well. So Coder says lots of gray/black hat hackers have done a lot of good, even though they're breaking the law. Yes, it's another theme, right? Where Cliff talks about, I think he talks about, was this the one? Oh, the Chaos Club members. The Chaos Club members justify their actions with a peculiar set of ethics. They claim, this is really kind of responding to Coder's comment. They claim that it's perfectly all right for them to roam through others' databases, so long as they don't destroy any information. In other words, they believe their technicians' curiosity. Well, anyway, that deals with the fact that they claim the right to peruse any computer that they can break into. But there was another one. Yeah. He says near the end, he says, I saw the hacker not as a chess master teaching us all valuable lessons by exploiting the weak points in our defenses, but as a vandal, sowing distrust and paranoia in a small town where people never lock their doors. Would we? I saw the hacker not as a chess master. Whoa, I got open mic. I got hot mic from somebody. Who is it? In our defenses. Who's got the hot mic?
They muted themselves.
Okay, thank you. I was hearing I heard something. I'm like, wait, that's me on a delay. In a small town where people never lock their doors, would we praise the first burglar for showing the townspeople how foolish it was to leave their houses open? After it happened, the town could never go back to open doors. The town I grew up in Iowa, very tiny little one-horse town. Actually, I don't think there were any horses in our town. Probably some cows. But no, seriously, we would just leave for the weekend and not lock the doors. We just, you know what I mean? Is that good or bad, right? But now you have this, but evolve, move forward from the 80s and white hat hacking, right? Which is where you take all the same skills, hacking skills, but you're literally like on the payroll, right? Of a company, right? Trying to hack in, hiring people to break in. That became the smart play at some point, because at least at some point when you realize that it is a thing, it's good to understand that, you know? My late father-in-law he was old school. He was 85 when he passed away, but he always used to leave the keys to his car, the car unlocked, the keys to the car in like the ashtray. Always. and everybody would talk to him, and sadly, you know how many times his car was stolen over, 60 years of driving? Any guesses? I'll take guesses. Never. Exactly, Coder. Never. Which frankly kind of pissed me off, I'm like, could the world please just teach this guy a lesson? Because honestly, even though he's gone, I still think it was dumb. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not going, well, maybe I was wrong. You know? No, no, I'm like, no, he was really wrong. I'm really upset that life never, showed him. Eh, yeah, anyway, here's another one related to that, where he goes, very near the end when he's moralizing about things. Suppose someone disabled 2,000 automobiles, like by letting the air out of the tires. How would you measure the damage? By one measure, there's been no damage at all. The cars are intact. All you got to do is pump in back some air. Or you can measure damage by the loss of the cars. Let's see, how much do you lose if your car is disabled for a day? Cost of a tow truck, price of a rental car, the amount of work you've lost. Hard to say. Perhaps you'd thank the person who let the air out of your tires. Award him a medal for raising your consciousness about automotive security. Very sarcastic, but point well taken, right? And then back to some programmers see this virus as a useful exercise in raising consciousness about computer security. The virus writer should be thanked. Yeah, sure, right. And again, okay, but just some more thoughts about all that. Uh, let's see. Backing up. Um, So gray hat, black hat, white hat. The skill set, by the way, is all really the same. That's the interesting thing. And this is another very interesting thing. The skill set between white hat and black hat hackers, and I don't know if not everybody's security, everything, you understand the differentiation kind of between black hat and gray hat and white hat. The white hat hacker, supposedly the good guy, right? Is that's the classic metaphor. um, the the black hat is trying to do malicious things, right? They're trying to break in for whatever. They're griefers. They're trying to get in to destroy. The white hat trying to see what the vulnerabilities are so they can help you. Gray hat, they're either just poking around for fun to see if they can, and then um, not really doing anything at all. I mean, they're not really trying to be malicious. Or doing it to raise awareness, find a vulnerability and then send an email to the company. Hey, FYI, you have a vulnerability here. Maybe you should patch, maybe you should upload the latest patches to WordPress or something. Funny thing is, when I was a teenager, I mentioned this, I think, before when we talked a little bit about history. We had a computer club in Jessup, Iowa. Jessup, tiny little Jessup. The town where we didn't, lock our doors. We had a computer club in the 70s, starting in about 73. And it was a timeshare system. So there was a server at the University of Northern Iowa. Go Panthers. And which, UNI was 40 minutes away. And, it's where a lot of us that were eventually became CS types kind of really got our start, right? Programming and going up to the computing center to look through the glass at the mainframes, and go, ooh. And we were just, dumpster dive for discarded manuals and crap like that, which we did. But on this timeshare system, there were like shared areas where you could put, programs and things you could write that would, um, that everybody could see. So it'd be different students from different schools, basically. And so you had access to like your own folder, but security was a really dicey thing. This is the 70s. And we built we would just build these little programs. They were always called something like, fun, 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 or you know what I mean, something that wouldn't draw attention, but wouldn't draw negative attention. You know what I mean? Um, but would get people to run it, and it would say, "Welcome to Fun, Fun, Fun. To access the system, please log in." Right, and then it would just record a clear text, usernames and passwords. We did this. The statute of limitations, I believe, has expired for any activities we were involved in. We were very not interested in anything destructive, but I do remember doing this at like 13, and and then just logging in as different users from different schools, just to go bounce around on their servers, to on their folders, you know, for no real purpose. And in fact, it was really boring. I mean, it was like there was nothing at all of any interest. You know what I mean? And after a fashion, we're just like, we probably shouldn't be doing that. So even then, we kind of had a sense of it. So that's just a side note. Let's see. Yeah, Chad called for a rising up of the independents. That's right. I did crack up, by the way, on that, on the social dilemma with the extreme center. You know what I mean? Everybody's being radicalized to the extreme center. I thought that was kind of clever, so that it could stay a little bit non-denominational. But as a radical centrist, I was a little offended by it. Camille said that's the trouble with the us versus them thinking, you know. And it is true that the German soldiers are grunt men who didn't want to be there either. Also true. Also true. Now, of course, there's still that, actual war is a very different issue. I think, and I think we'd all agree. I think you would agree, Camille, that World War II would be a different proposition, but it's a thought experiment, right? You got to try to understand, as you take the limit of the function, what the limiting principles are that say, well, when would that be okay? Where's the line where it would be okay and then it would not be okay? And if the only differentiation between what's okay versus what's not okay is like, you know, your religion, let's say, or your politics, or your philosophy, if that's the only difference, then I think you're in a real potentially difficult place in terms of just intellectual honesty. Hi, Mike, Devin. Sticks and Stones, Austin. That used to be the thing. I watched a video clip, back to Sticks and Stones. I watched a video clip of and I may have posted it to some social media, but I can't remember whether it was Twitter or Facebook. But it was somebody hosting a show, whatever it was. You know what I mean? And they had somebody who had a question for some individual that had a question. They said, okay, we got a question from, and then and by the way, the name itself, the individual's name, was, from my perspective, not immediately apparent how you would pronounce that name, right? And there are a lot of individuals here. Some of you are pretty straight up, Alex, Christian, you know, what I mean? John, Chad, these are not, Chuck, these are not, there's not much wiggle room, you know what I mean, for how you would probably say that name. Although there can always be a little something going down. But, we've got Austin, who likes to be called Austin. And, but in any case, what I would have probably tried to do there was just said, so we have a question from, someone in the audience. Help me with your name. Help me. How do you say your name? And give them an opportunity to say their name. You know what I mean? Then I can try to, because I think that taking the effort to know somebody's name, to say it the way they prefer that you say it, to to remember how to spell. Like, it's remarkable. I mean, Knutsen's not an obvious to spell last name, but it is stunning to me how people can send email to me at, C. Knutsen spelled correctly, and then start off with dear Dr. Knudsen, and like, look, the email address itself is right there. You made like no effort at all to get that right. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think that it's an element of human respect between each other, that we try to learn each other's names. And when we have class in person, which we haven't done for a while, I always tried. One of my goals was by the end of the semester to literally know everybody's name in all of my sections, all the students in all the sections. It takes some effort, but it's about acknowledgement. Anyway, but so they mispronounced this person's name, but it was a reasonable attempt. I thought it was a reasonable attempt. Anyway, the individual gets this piss look on their face and says, "That's violence." Literally, that was the first thing out of their mouth was, "That's violence." And I was, and my comment as I made this post, as I posted that video clip, was, if honestly mispronouncing somebody's name is violence, then the term has no meaning anymore. And that's the problem. I think I really believe that it's seriously a problem. That's my opinion. And I'm cool with disagreeing. Okay, let me keep going. Chad, words make Chad cry. I got it. Um, yeah, so John said, I think in any war or conflict, both sides believe that their sides are justified. They don't believe they're wrong. Yeah, oftentimes there are massive differences in culture that can fuel the difference. Also true. Almost never a clear-cut versus good versus evil, and I also agree. Generally, many shades of gray. Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree completely. The problem is most movies give a completely inaccurate representation of conflict. Oh my gosh, that's another one. Alex said, there is a danger in underestimating the effects of speech, though. Yes, Alex, yes. So let me be really clear. When I say that speech and violence are not the same thing, I am not saying, right? By the way, what am I not saying? Everything else I didn't actually say is what I'm not saying. But I'm not saying that there isn't, and I think Alex is bringing up this point, and I think it's a really good point. I'm not saying that there isn't influence, because I absolutely believe that that's true. And so Alex mentioned, led Europe to do nothing until Germany, you know, went into Poland or even Czechoslovakia before that, or even Belgium. Um, yeah. And so I absolutely believe that speech is powerful, that speech can incite violence, especially where there's a direct call to violence. But even without a direct call to violence, I believe that speech can incite violence, physical violence, and so I believe that speech is very, very powerful and therefore needs to be, treated with some care and with some respect and really with nuance. But I believe that we are really non-exercised in our culture at nuance, and it's amazing. If someone's like, I just really didn't think that those people should have been dragged out of that car, beaten to death. Oh, so you're saying no, no, I'm not saying that. You know, Also, I'm a big believer that we can hold multiple ideas in our heads. Not everybody can, but I believe that it is within normal human capacity to hold multiple ideas in our heads. You know what I mean? At the same time. You know what I'm saying? I think, you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah. Let me keep going. I think a lot of things. So yeah, Alex, I'm glad you brought that up. Christian asked, what if violence is not binary? What if it's analog? Could there be tiers of violence? Absolutely. Absolutely. Can some behaviors be more violent than others? Absolutely. I agree. Camille said, I think yes, seeing as some violence can end life or cripple a person, others could cause temporary pain. Yeah. I think there's no question that there are just, the same way then Christian mentioned, right, attempted murder, violent mob destroying property, calling for the death of somebody, right? They're not, absolutely, that's right. And nobody would, and agree completely, Christian, that no one would say that a brick through a window of an empty building is the same level of violence as a gun fired at a human being. They're both violence. Agree. Absolutely. And so for me, where I'm the most bothered is where we lose our humanity. You know what I mean? And how do you lose your humanity? I think in part you do it by dehumanizing the others. When we dehumanize the others, it's easier to simply, I mean, this happens at soccer games around the world, right? Where, or sports match. That's a good one because it's like, well, whatever, red team, blue team, whatever the, opposing teams. And all of a sudden, these guys are fisticuffs or, jumping somebody and beating the crap out of them. And, and that's just sports. I mean, that's not even, what's the philosophical underpinning? You could at least argue that, whatever, I think the minimum wage should be raised or not. And you can have an intelligent argument or discussion about that. This is just about like, I like that team and you like that team. And what's the moral position? That to me is so when you have this is my problem with that example that I gave about dragging somebody out of a car, you know, I think that by the time you're dragging a random stranger out of a car to beat the crap out of them because they're on the street where your protest is happening, I just think at that moment, if you're doing that, I think you've lost your humanity. I really do. That's my opinion. And I don't care what your politics are at that point. I think you've lost your humanity if that's what happened. And I don't care if someone is on my team, as it were, politically. Okay. Yeah, Gabe made the comment. Yeah, speech is not completely harmless. Absolutely agree. And it does matter whose mouth the speech is coming out of. Absolutely agree completely. Interesting. So John made the comment about the rise of Marxist communism in Eastern Europe. No, that's right. Well, and in fact, that was part of the problem, actually, when those elections were happening in Germany, because the choices were either sort of the old guard of the Weimar Republic or the communists or the Nazis. They were all kind of bad choices. And there was definitely a sort of a terror about communism because of Stalin. So you have this anyway, that's a really complex historical topic. Oh, and Cole, thank you for reminding me that that the stuff's still grayed out. I haven't touched the schedule. Can you tell? But I'm gonna get to it. Yeah, John, who gets to draw the line indicating where speech becomes violence? I don't know, but I think that we have to. I think that in part the conventional standard, if you will, the societal standard for these things, in my view, should be the aggregate of the individual perspectives. You know, therefore, discussion becomes critical, but also therefore, when you shut down speech on the basis that your words are violence, you have created some serious problems because there's no way now to have some discussion about it because some cross section has had their ability to, weigh in the public square sort of squashed. Okay, I'm going to scan down a little bit and then I want to hit a couple more things about Cliffy. Yeah, so I like Christian, I like your comment. The universe has no obligation to present our society with only easy questions. Yeah, amen to that. And then John just said, you can cause extremist reaction or movements inadvertently. Yes. Right. Yeah. So Gabe said, I think sometimes it's more or less apparent if a politician says random people, the others, whatever, right, are bad, all this crap is their fault, then you see heightened violence against that group, that notion of accountability. I agree, but it's often not that clear. Um, yeah. Yep. I'm skipping over Alex's invitation into a quagmire of discussing Nazism, but it's good points. It's good points. And it's only on the issue of time and a few topics I want to get to. Oh, interesting. John said, in regards to the analogy of a mob attacking a random person, reminded me of when Rand Paul was attacked by a mob when leaving the RNC. I don't know. I mean, I remember that part of it. They were shouting, say her name, referring to Breonna Taylor. They probably didn't realize that he was the author of the Breonna Taylor Law, which aims to end no-knock raids, trying to do something about it. But again, that ability to be like, everything is black and white, everything's just A or B, and I'm A, so you're B, and therefore, anyway, wow, these are just such great comments. Great comments. And Christian is clarifying how Austin pronounces his name, which is fantastic. It's also violence, Christian, FYI. Let me see. Okay, I'm not wading into Godwin's law here for bringing Nazism in. It's still really, really great. Oh man, Rwanda. Thank you, Camille, for bringing up Rwanda. Yep. Oh man. And so John said there's so much straw man argument, right? What we call a straw man argument. That's where you couch your opponent's position like a scarecrow, like a straw person. And then because they're made of straw, you're like, okay, there's your argument. Ready? Watch. And the straw goes poof, and the straw dummy just like falls over. And you're like, see how easy that was to knock you down? But I did it by starting by couching your position, you know, um, in the weakest form possible. Um, all right, Gabe, thanks for posting that link for those that are interested. All right. And then Alex was, clarifying a little bit. Okay, so let's hit a couple other things. Whew. But you see, to me, okay, the gray zones. Cliff is emerging from a kind of a black and white thinking about the world. These are the good guys. Good guys do this. Bad guys do that. Good guys have this, alliance. Good guys, what did I say? Good guys have this alliance. Bad guys have that alliance. You know, good guys have politics that are like mine, irrespective of their behavior, perhaps. Bad guys, irrespective of their behavior, are, politically or philosophically opposed, right? Um, you know, some other things as Cliff starts, the kind of related to that is he stops seeing everything from a kind of an us versus them dehumanizing. Uh, he was like, weren't these the people who meddle in Central American politics and smuggle arms to right-wing thugs? Yet the guy I just talked to didn't sound like a villain. He seemed like an ordinary person concerned with a problem. In other words, he has, here's where it starts. Cliff begins to see all the people that he's dealing with as humans, you know? Let's see. What are some other ones related to that idea? Yeah, here's the other one. Where he's referring to Martha again. She still thought of anyone working against the military as one of us. And in her eyes, I was persecuting someone on our own side. How do I explain that having been mixed up in this thing so long, I had stopped seeing clear political boundaries? All of us had common interests. Myself, my lab, the FBI, the CIA, NSA, military groups, and yes, even Lori. Each of us desired security and privacy. And then he says, same page, I felt trapped and confused and unfairly felt it was all Lori's fault for being so simplistic and self-righteous. You know? And then he says, this is the very next page after that, the questions Lori had stirred up inside me came back to haunt me through the night. I lay awake and wondered where all this was leading me and what kind of person I was being turned into by this strange chase. But, to me, though, I just think that that's a path of enlightenment for all of us. Honestly, is just to stop seeing people as representatives of some ideological class and actually seeing people as individuals, as people. He said, how far I'd come. A year ago, I would have viewed these officers as warmongering puppets of the Wall Street capitalists. This, after all, was what I learned in college. Now things didn't seem so black and white. And again, yeah, I don't think, when all the dust settled, I don't think that, that Cliff cut his hair and regretted that he didn't vote for Reagan. I don't think that happened. You know what I mean? I doubt he just became a, uh, whatever. You know what I mean? I think Cliff probably persists politically with more liberal, sort of slash leftist philosophies of life and politics and government, and I think that's fine. Um, what I love though is that he began to, view people as individuals and not as simply, you know, partisans wearing a uniform that opposed him. That to me, honestly, my friends, if I can look at just about anything we could talk about and beat on a little bit. I mean, this book is great in part because it's about security and hackers and it's early in the thing, But this journey of Cliff, I think, is so important. And honestly, for me, quite an unexpected theme when I first read the book. Very unexpected. Um, Let me give you another example. Somewhere during, you guys know I voted third party, right? But somewhere during this primary process on the Democrats, well, I mean, there was no primary process, right, per se, on the Republicans, but I don't even remember who issued the criticism. It might have been the current vice president, but a criticism of then candidate Biden, now President Biden, um, that basically that he had consorted, with racists, or that he had participated. Now, here's the point with some, other senators who I would, I don't even remember the details. I just remember that the point wasn't even about the legislation in question. That's not how it was poised, or that's how it was posed. It was more like you collaborated with, this and this person, these known racists, whatever. And I'm not even arguing the legitimacy of that claim. I don't even know that I remember, who the senators were that were named. I never went and like looked them up to get, I don't know, right? And but let's assume for the sake of argument that the assertions about them were true. Just assume it for the sake of argument, because I really don't know. And I remember, that that Biden was just kind of like, Yeah, it's called reaching across the aisle to get legislation passed, which I think was the right answer. And that always was kind of, again, your mileage may vary on this, but I think it was always at some level, some of the reputation that Biden had as a senator, the ability to work with people, get along. Yeah, and what you've seen over time, I've seen graphics that have to do with like votes across the aisle. I think it might have been. I think it might have been Vice President Harris. Um, Politics makes strange bedfellows, as they say. But anyway, but the notion that you collaborated with somebody, but this graphic that I've seen, and I could probably try to find it, that looked at collaboration within like the Senate, either jointly sponsoring bills or supporting and voting for bills, whatever. And if you go back like 50 years, there's much more of an enmeshed thing. And then over that time period, it just moves more and more till you get this almost complete separation, but it's that same kind of vilifying, it's that blaming and that vilifying to get to this unbelievably, I've never seen anything quite like this in my life. And I've been a political junkie since I was a kid, actually, till I finally gagged out on it over the last, half a decade and just simply kind of got a little tired of the whole thing. Yeah. Let's see. So I want to say one other thing. Alex just said this, and again, I don't want to go, I want to step away with the time we've got. But Alex just said, you can recognize key traits of ideologies that aren't obviously obvious or aesthetically recognizable. Excuse me. If Nazis return, they won't be wearing armbands and marching in the streets. They'll only be recognized by their goals and rhetoric. And I agree with that, but I want to tack on and methods. And shouting down speech and treating speech as violence and shouting down speech is a brown shirt tactic. That's a problem to me. That's a serious problem. Once you squelch that voice, it's a different playing field when a certain group isn't permitted to speak and when the Overton window shrinks into a black hole of one ideology. That's a problem and bodes poorly. So anyway, all right, let me hit a couple other things real quick. Privacy versus convenience. Some of this is more pure security. Really true. I mean, the most secure system would be, buried in, port in concrete, buried in the bottom of the ocean. How about, I thought it was a really good little bit of an expose focused on, he says, the hacker didn't succeed through sophistication. Rather, he poked at obvious places, trying to enter through unlocked doors. Persistence, not wizardry, led it through, which also relates to the number one thing that hackers do is social engineering. Get to know somebody who does have access, manipulate somebody who does have access, right? This one, I doubt we'll find much, he said. It's impossible to break into our secure site, and all our employees have clearances. Oh, good. All good. You're safe. No problem. Let me see. Related to that one. Yeah. Okay. What about this one relating to all of that? The fact that the law and technology don't move in perfect lockstep. We've talked a little bit about this, right? The law, right? There was one where he said, the real problem is in German law, Steve said. I don't think they recognize hacking as a crime. You're kidding, of course. No, he said, a lot of countries have outdated laws. In Canada, a hacker that broke into a computer was convicted of stealing electricity rather than trespassing. He was prosecuted only because the connection had used a microwatt of power from the computer. And then this really is this kind of continuing theme, right? That it's really difficult for the legal system to keep up. And it takes a while for a society to sort out in this new world what the new thing is. Here's an example. Like, for example, cyberbullying laws trailed pretty badly. I've made this statement that it's not a perfectly accurate statement, but a lot of lights, traffic lights for crosswalks at like school crossings or near schools or someplace, they owe their existence to somebody dies. Maybe nobody thought of it. Maybe it's like, nah, everybody's okay. Sometimes they're like, this could be problematic. We probably, but these things cost money. Budgets are not unlimited. You're right. You're trying to make a decision between, one thing and another. And then somebody gets killed. And now it's like, you have to now bite the bullet, spend the money, and put the crosswalk in. Do you put crosswalks everywhere with lights everywhere in the entire country? Highly impractical. There's always a set of trade-offs. Again, we're operating in the gray zone. But but a lot of times we don't have a law until a thing happens. Then that sparks us. So an example of that was sometime back, what was the time frame? Early 2000s, where I think this was in Missouri, if my memory serves me, where this, just girls at school were having some kind of a teenage spat. And the mother of one of the girls went online, created a profile, and then began to sort of cyberbully. So her daughter was party to this little spat, whatever it was. She, lacking every bit of wisdom that could just about be had, goes and makes a fake profile, poses as a boy, reaches out to her, befriends her, becomes kind of like an online persona, you know what I mean? Expresses, you're really cute, blah, blah, blah. They get kind of in this relationship. All of this is the mother of one of the other kids. It's just like so, anyway, it's so unbelievably tragic. And then at some point she did this to basically win her trust. And then the next thing that happens is she says, so I just met some people that know you, and it turns out you're not a very nice person, you know? And the girl's name is Megan, if I remember correctly, and she's like, wait, what? And then this is again the mom starts now this cyberbullying thing and starts just saying unbelievably horrible things, unbelievably horrible things like, yeah, everybody at your school hates you. They all wish you were dead. Just bull crap like that. I don't possess profanity strong enough to express, right, the emotion that I feel about this. And spoiler, this girl, takes her own life. And it was only after this that there was no law. There was no law that was really dialed in to prosecute for that sort of thing. It was in Missouri. They then created they called it Megan's Law, not uncommon, right, to name a law after the name of the victim, to attach meaning to it, to make it easier, you know what I mean, for legislators and for the public to understand it and get around it, get their head around it. Anyway, but I mean, that's just it was so unspeakably tragic. And it wasn't until after that, that there was a law. So, and that's just kind of in the cyberbullying space, right? Which there was always bullying. There was always schoolyard bullying, you know. There always was. But then once there was cyber, then there was cyberbullying. And a lot of other precedents, societal precedent. Like, is it the school's business if somebody from your school, if you're the principal of a school, middle school, let's say, and two of the kids in your school, not during school time, not on school property, are are in some exchange. One of them is cyberbullying the other. Do you have an interest in it? I mean, I think it's a reasonable philosophical question that societally, within the last 20 years, we had to grapple with. And then when smartphones showed up, you know, more than ever. So that's only the last like 12 years, right? Um, I'm not jumping, by the way. Gabe, Alex, just so you know, I love, love, love the comments and the depth of the comments. Love it. I'm just not jumping in, okay? But just know that I'm loving what you're throwing in there. But just so you know, I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not going on the thread. So Camille said, I'd argue that cyberbullying is often worse since people have both a sense of anonymity, yes, and they're more removed from the fact that the people that they're bullying are in fact human beings. Yes. Thank you, Camille. Yeah, no, it really is right. And what is it? It is the other, it is the othering, the otherification of the others, right? I have to dehumanize them, right? I can't, if I'm Nazi, I'm going back, Godwin's law, here I come. What I'm trying to say is I have to dehumanize Jews before I can victimize them, right? If I'm a Nazi leader, you know what I mean? They have to become the others so that I'm just like, well, I know they're rounding up all the Jews, but they are Jews. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, societally, the remainder of that society, the majority of that society, is going to kind of be like, well, they're not coming from my group, you know. That's part of how that happens. So the othering, you know, the othering, in my view, is a dangerous, dangerous precedent. It's a precondition for something like the Holocaust to happen again. And can it happen again? Damn right it can happen again. As absurd as that might seem, yes. Can it happen here? Absolutely. I think we're just now, how long does it take, before conditions are ripe for that to happen? I mean, history doesn't suggest that we move forward as a monotonically non-decreasing function. We cycle. To me, that's the lesson of history. Is that we cycle. So I think it's unbelievably naive to think that, America could never become a dictatorship, that America could never become Venezuela, economically and human rights and everything else, that America could, I think it's unspeakably naive, to assert that. But the othering is critical. Shutting down speech, critical. Deplatforming, critical to get there, my opinion. My opinion, one man's opinion. And while I am a very smart professor, as we've established, I am also just one man's opinion. And I can also be wrong because I already know that I'm wrong about a bunch of stuff. I just don't know what they are. Okay, that's creepy, Harrison. It's super creepy. Okay, I got to read it. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. I'm not going to read it now, but that's crazy. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. No, but if we really do believe that somehow we're immune just because we're America, I think that's unspeakably naive, in my opinion. Very, very naive. Um, okay. Last bit of anything. Let me see. Just hitting my notes here. Yeah, those are really the key. That's the bulk. We talked about personal accountability and persistence. I think Cliff was absolutely an example of that. Um, yeah, any parting thoughts? I guess we've just got a couple minutes. Um, has this been interesting? I hope this has been an interesting conversation about the cuckoo's egg. By the way, you got to have your second book. That's coming up here in the next, what do we got? 7 weeks to the end of the semester. We're probably 3, 4 weeks. So if you haven't gotten that book, you got to get it approved by me. You got to submit the thing on Canvas that says, here's the book I'm choosing. If it's already on the list, I've got that list of books that's linked from Canvas. That's that big Google spreadsheet, and you can jump on there and if I give you green light for a book, please go put it in the list. If it's already in the list, you're welcome to any of them. There's nothing special about that list versus some other options. They're just already been through the process and they're already pre-approved. If that's easier, fine. I do love the fact that 1984 is more relevant right now than at any other point. And by the way, okay, spoiler. 1984 is an equal opportunity condemner of the two political extremes in America today, in my opinion. Okay? Those of you that think, well, Trump's out of office, we're no longer at risk for 1984. No, I think you're misreading the whole situation. As I recently finished reading 1984, rereading it, a little bit stunning, actually. There were just certain things that would be like, yeah, it's kind of a right wing thing. And other things, it's like, that's very much a left wing thing. You know, that there are dynamics that come into play. But weirdly, 1984 is now relevant for a topic in a class called kind of, ethics in computers and society. Nominally, that's our name. I think it's cool though that, in a sense that's a thing, and uncool that I think we're closer to that sort of dystopian reality than we ever have been. Like right now, I think, my opinion. And what I'd kind of recommend to you is that you teasing those things apart. You're teasing apart what are like whoever made the comment earlier about, what are the philosophies? What are the tactics? How do you know it when it shows up? How do you know it when it's really, really, early in that process? How do you recognize it? Well, I think one of the ways we recognize it is by nuance. Okay. Radical nuance. That's my political perspective. So, Alex, I'm really curious, and this is a sincere question, that 1984 was banned in some parts of the US by, what does that mean? I know it was banned in the Soviet Union for being anti-communist. Yeah. Which is very much a self-fulfilling kind of behavior, right? Like once you're banning books, you know, yeah, okay, let me see. Ian's reading 1984. It is wild, right, Ian? I mean, it's just, and for those of you that are reading it, yeah, I'd be curious, Alex. Little chapter and verse on that would be great. I'm not questioning whether that's true. I don't know whether it's true, but I'm not saying I believe it's not true. I'm just saying I'd be curious about, like, where do we know that kind of thing. Okay, my friends, it's 5:15. Okay. Okay, Gabe waits until 5:15 to win the chat, okay? So Gabe, congratulations to Gabe for winning the chat today. And I'm going to just read this into the record for YouTube. Ironically, my bed caught on fire while I was up late reading Fahrenheit 451 in the 7th grade. Gabe, it's for you, man. This is for you. I got nothing. Nothing to top that, like whatsoever. So I just want to end on that one. That's fantastic. Uh, I did think about that when I saw like robot dogs, robot cop dogs or whatever, and I'm like, wait, that's Fahrenheit 451. Come on. So what we need is robot dogs, patrolling our neighborhoods. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, hey, listen, it's I gotta cut loose, gotta go. My back hurts. But every day's better. Every day's better. Great to just be with you. Your comments are amazing. You're amazing as a class. Really wish we were face to face, just so I could see your faces, see who's sleeping. Actually, I don't care about that. What I really care about is just seeing you personally, and the connections. The human connections are kind of what I live for. So, alrighty, I'm gonna just shut it down kind of on the quick side. Thank you, Cole. Thank you. I will try to rest up. Work just keeps splattering me, but I really do appreciate it. Appreciate all the well wishes and personal notes and everything from everybody. Really means a lot. I know I'm so behind the curve. I know it, and I'm really sorry. Doing everything I can do, and hopefully we're still having fun. Okay, out of here. See you, everybody. Hubert says bye. Just bringing him in here. Bringing him in. He's